Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the Marketing Association. I'm here with Peter Horan from Horan Media Tech Advisors, but Peter has worn a lot of hats over the years and continues to wear a lot of hats. And we decided to get together to talk about Amazon's dominant position and how that's evolving, given the fact that they've now got the Amazon Basics brand and a bunch of other in-house brands, and how that's somewhat similar to how Walmart and Target and Costco deal with their in-house brands, but it's also quite different in other ways. So we'll start off with the first question, Peter, which is, how are brands dealing with this, channel that they've come to rely on, being Amazon, going into the private label business?
Yeah, and let me start out by saying I'm as guilty as anybody else of reaching for Amazon first. They're just the secret of Amazon's success and also why it's a threat is that they've made it just so darn easy to go to Amazon first. You're sitting here going, well, what store might have this? Can I go pick it up? Well, can I get delivered? You go Amazon Prime, bang, it'll be here tomorrow morning.
Right.
And that behavior really does change a lot of the dynamics of the consumer's relationship both with brands and with other retailers. And so that's actually why this is so, Amazon has made commerce frictionless. They've got your address, they've got your credit card, they know what you like. And now, and I think, in some ways, and it was, it went from the website where there was actually a little more activity. You had to go to the computer, turn on the computer, go to, well, it's on an app on your phone, which is kind of in your hand or nearby most of the time, to it's just ambient in the ceiling of your house with Hey Alexa, um, and everything sort of there's no impulse control, there's no friction, and so with that Amazon has really kind of changed everything. One of the kind of core concepts that I think about a lot is everybody's fighting for the first click. Everybody wants to be upstream. Everybody wants to get control of the consumer at the first moment they think about purchasing something, and then steer them towards. Google does that, Apple is doing that, Facebook does it, Amazon does that. And so with Amazon, what they've tried to do is construct this like totally smooth pipe that goes from your interest to a transaction. And they don't want any leakage in that pipe if they can avoid it. And so they say, okay, well, why might someone leave my pipe? Well, they want a reassurance that this is a good choice. Well, they've got product information, they've got consumer reviews. Uh, oh, yeah, once upon a time, back in the ancient history days, like when I'd order from Land's End via a print catalog, they'd say, well, free shipping for orders over $100. They start going, well, is there other stuff I could add to the order? You think about it. Well, let me put it aside. I'll do it later. Now, especially with Amazon Prime, it's like, yeah, bang, press the button and stuff arrives. And so with consumers solving for convenience and ease, uh, they sort of abdicate some of the decision making. And like I said, the example, we started to talk about is, I go, hey Alexa, I need AAA batteries. If I don't say, Alexa, I would like Duracell batteries or I like Everready batteries, most likely Amazon is going to suggest that I get Amazon Basics, and that's what's going to go into the box. The other thing that's different, and I did a blog post recently where I quoted somebody from Inc. magazine talking about how this is different than sort of a physical retail spot. But imagine that as you reach for the box of Cheerios, Safeway can put a little sticker. Wait, before you buy that, we've got Safeway, cereal that's just as good and it's cheaper and it's right here. Um, but in a sense, Amazon has that ability to interrupt the purchase process and sort of try to switch you off of the brand. And so I think what that really means is that both brands and retailers now need to be much more active in building a relationship with the consumer. Um, and those of us in the web business, we often talk about net promoter scores. And the net promoter score is really sort of a measure of, well, what's the difference between the folks who really like you and the folks who really hate you? Um, but if you're a brand right now or a retailer, it's in a sense much more extreme. because all those folks that are in the middle, so let's just say just for laughs, 20% of your audience loves you, 20% hates you, and there's 60% in the middle. In this environment, those 60% are totally at play. Those are prime candidates for Amazon, Walmart, or somebody else to switch them off
Yeah,
because
switchers,
they're like,
right.
yeah, they sort of like you. They don't really hate you. But if they get a better deal or a shinier box, you lose them.
Yeah, well, the soft drink and beer companies have been fighting over the switchers with their entire media budget for the last 50 years, right? Because
Sure.
they've got their own base, right? And everything they're fighting over is really the switchers. But it was
Yeah.
interesting your comment about like owning that first click and how important that is. My first thought went to publishers are also fighting for that first click, right? That's why publishers invest in SEO, and I've of course been doing SEO since pre-Google.
Yeah.
Um, and so they think about being that first or that second click, but now brands as publishers or brands as content creators are equally sort of fighting over that first click, and they're getting more wary of the retail channel, right? A lot
Sure.
of them have gone DTC because, to be honest, they don't feel that they don't feel secure with their retail partners anymore.
Well, because the retail partners are in their priority is to sell house brands. Someone who is at a brand, a manufacturer, was telling me that REI right now, and everything's REI, they're benign, they're a co-op, but they're pushing hard to sell house brands just like everybody else, and their goal is to have more than half of their dollar volume in house brands. And so, they'll bring in, really strong brands like a Patagonia or cool new products almost as a test. And then they'll immediately start to figure out how do I knock this off and sell a house brand, for 20% less. And so with the retailers driving more and more volume, and obviously see Costco do this, you see Walmart do this, and obviously Amazon's doing this. So in a sense, the brands need to counter that by having their own direct relationship with the consumer. And not just say, oh, we're going to have a storefront, but sort of create a whole bunch of an experience which makes the consumer want to come to their site, want to engage with them directly. And have really superior customer service and superior product knowledge. In a sense, that's their advantage. Why do you want this Garmin wristwatch versus an Apple Watch? Because Apple's going to make it really easy for you to buy an Apple Watch,
Right.
and they're going to link it to everything. Uh, and so if Garmin's going to talk me off of an Apple Watch, yeah, maybe it's not fair, but they're going to have to work half again as hard as Apple does.
Right, right. Yeah, it probably has to do with the level of engagement for the purchase too. Obviously, it's more difficult for me to really think too hard about batteries. Whereas if I'm buying something sophisticated like an appliance or a big screen TV or a phone, you know, uh, me interacting with Samsung or me interacting with LG, may have a bigger influence on my final purchase decision. And
Sure.
of course, if it's frictionless for me to do that from their website, then they haven't risked a competitive conquest if I go out to a retailer.
Yeah, but also, if you think about just, and that the TVs are a great example. Imagine, you walk into Best Buy, and they got all these TVs up on the wall, and they're all on a direct feed, so they all look great. The $200 Vizio looks great, and the $7,000 Sony looks great. And you sit there and you ask the kid in the blue shirt, so why do I want this one? Why is that one 30 times more expensive than this one? And maybe he got a little bit of mumbo jumbo, but he doesn't really know. And so if I'm Best Buy, I need that person in the store, boots on the ground, to actually be much smarter than what somebody's going to see on Amazon and really be able to say, hey, well, let me show you here. This is what this is really good for. This is why you need this. And if I'm Samsung or LG or Sony, I need to be able to really explain why my TV is worth, 10 times or 20 times as much as a Vizio. And that's where particularly the direct communication from the brand to the consumer can be really important because my cool new OLED technology and this and why I built this chip in and here's why it's going to last longer. But and so in some ways it's sort of pushed the responsibility back to the brand as much as to the retail to actually, build a case for their product and to build a relationship with the consumer.
Yeah, so I think given the frictionless nature of the online purchase experience, or even in the traditional retail experience that you describe, I think your point to the brand is you better have really done your homework to make sure that the consumer walks in there with a strong brand preference. Because if they don't walk in
Yes,
there with a strong brand preference, or they don't show up at Amazon or BestBuy.com with a strong brand preference, they're going to get co-opted. So they're going to go by
exactly.
price, or they'll be confused into buying something else.
Exactly. And I actually think Best Buy has done a pretty good job over the last 3 or 4 years of upgrading the quality of the knowledge and service of the blue shirts in the stores. I think they've actually taken this very, very seriously. But a lot of, other retailers, they're putting in $15 an hour minimum wage folks, and they're not adequately trained. And so you may as well, and so people walk through the store with their phone in their hand going, okay, what are the reviews? What's the price? What's the, and about half the time they're going to go, oh, wait, I can get this on Amazon for less, or I can get, a better product, or I can get it cheaper, or I get it faster. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
faster, of course. Maybe that one is the one thing that the brick and mortar still has as an advantage. But as we know, Amazon in a lot of areas has same day or next day delivery, not 2 day, and so
right, right, right.
that they're removing more and more friction as time goes on, and any kind of a pandemic is going to fuel that because nobody wants to go out to the retail
Yeah, go
environment.
hang out in the store and no, it's like, yeah. So, but so I think that, my kind of core recommendation though is that true brand building is really, really important, more important than ever, because yeah, as we're saying, the channel is not the brand's partner; they're a competitor, and and increasingly, and particularly with I'll say millennial and Gen Z, they spend a lot more time worrying about, so what's the brand's values, what's the brand story. That's why they made Tom's shoes such a huge hit, is that it was a brand that had like really solid values and was doing good, and Burt's Bees, and and they're suspicious of big institutions, and they'd rather not do business with big institutions. And so brands need to really communicate. They have a legit relationship with the consumer, where the consumer says, "Yeah, we share a worldview, we share values. These are good people doing good work, and I want to. This represents my values well."
Right, right. Well, I mean, a lot of marketing professors like to define brand as the willingness of a consumer to pay more for what would otherwise be an equivalent product, right? If
Exactly.
you were to just
Yeah.
use pure specifications to describe the product.
Yeah.
So, it's up
No.
to the brand to figure out how to build that brand sufficiently where if the price is not the primary determinant, they end up winning the sale.
Yeah. No. And you saw this uh, in the automobile industry, right? Where for a lot of, I'll say particularly the U.S. brands got lazy. Well, no, we're Ford, we're Chevy, we're and we got distribution, we got and so we can just put on an okay car at a price, and then particularly in the '70s, the Japanese came in and said, no, actually, we can build a good car with better features for less money, and suddenly it was like, oops, we got to scramble here.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
in the end, I guess it's the product. It was interesting that you mentioned that the retail channel is essentially the competitor of the brand and not the partner. But yet, I think they still position themselves in their negotiations with the manufacturer, with the OEM as the partner, and put a lot of pressure on the manufacturers not to go DTC. Um, and it becomes a political tug of war within organizations at the manufacturer level. Like, should we go DTC as part of our efforts to build this relationship with our consumers? And so, how would you recommend that those manufacturers who haven't taken the jump yet think about that tug of war,
well,
internally politically?
yeah, well, even if it's not all the way to DTC, it's certainly at that stage of trying to get the consumer to walk into the store with kind of the brand choice tattooed on their hand or on their credit card.
Right.
Because the store, they're going to incent the people on the floor to, first of all, they want to make sure you buy something. Second, they'd rather you bought a house brand than a third party brand. And and then yeah, if you really, really kind of fight through all of that, yeah, they'll take your money for the premium brand. But
Right.
but so even if the brands don't want to go DTC, then they really have got to take responsibility for that brand choice and the consumer loyalty. Like I said, to an extent that they really have not.
Right. Right.